There are nights when even the stars hold their breath, when the wind forgets to move, and when the moon, once full and proud, hides her face in shame. They say such nights are born of men's sins, of words spoken against the sky, of promises broken beneath its light. In the heart of an old West African village called Nkara, people once believed that the moon was not just a light in the heavens, but the mother of eyes who watched over every soul, guiding the living and guarding the dead. And each full moon, the villagers would gather beneath her silver glow, drums beating softly, voices rising in sacred chant, thanking her for her light, for her mercy, for her gaze that never turned away. But one year, one man broke the silence of devotion. A man named Cato, whose grief burned hotter than faith, and whose anger climbed higher than the heavens themselves. That night he cursed the moon, and for the first time in history she listened. By dawn the sky had swallowed its light. The moon vanished, and the world was never the same again. Cato was a man of simple earth, a woodcutter who lived by the edge of the Nyari forest. His hut stood alone, shaded by a baobab that hummed softly in the wind. He was neither rich nor poor, neither loved nor feared. He worked hard, prayed little, and kept mostly to himself. But what made him different was not what he had, it was what he lost. A year before the night the moon disappeared, Cato had a wife, Sira. Her laughter was the melody of his mornings, her prayers the safety of his nights. Together they dreamt of having a child, planting a field, living quiet and long. But the spirits had other plans. During one harvest season, when the river ran dry and fever spread through the village, Sira fell ill. Cato prayed to the gods, to the ancestors, and to the mother of eyes. But his prayers met silence. When Sira died, the villagers said, "It was her time." But Cato said nothing. He buried her beneath the baobab tree, placed her bracelet on the soil, and looked up at the moon, the same moon he and Sira had once danced beneath, and whispered, "If you truly see all, then why did you watch her die?" From that night, he stopped attending the moon ceremonies. When others offered bowls of milk and honey to the goddess, Cato left his hands empty. When the drums called the faithful, he stayed in darkness. The elders warned him, "No man turns his back on the mother of eyes. Her silence is not absence, it is patience." But grief made him deaf to reason. He began to mock their rituals, to laugh when others prayed. Then came the night of the full moon, the sacred night of Sola, when every household lit fires and sang in gratitude. The air shimmered with drums, chants, and the soft hum of peace. But Cato sat alone by his wife's grave, staring at the silver glow in the sky. Something in him snapped. He rose, eyes red with tears and fury, and shouted into the heavens, "You watched her die. You watched me suffer. You take, and still you demand worship. If you are truly a goddess, then show yourself, or hide forever, and let us see how we survive without you." The wind stopped, the drums faltered, and somewhere deep in the forest, a strange echo replied, not from the sky but from the earth. That night the moon did not move. She hung still, pale, cold and silent. And when dawn came, she did not rise again. The people of Nkara woke to a world where morning never came. The sun rose weak, dimmed by an unnatural veil. By the second night the stars vanished too. Only shadow remained. Mama Zuri stepped out from the trembling crowd, her eyes milky white with age but glowing faintly in the torchlight. Her staff, carved from the wood of the sacred Irako, struck the ground once, a sound that silenced the whispers instantly. "It was no hunter," she said, her voice dry as dust. "It was a man who shouted at the sky, a man who dared to challenge the mother of eyes." Every gaze turned toward Cato, standing at the edge of the crowd, half hidden in shadow. His face was gaunt, his eyes sunken. his body trembling from sleepless nights. He had not eaten since the moon vanished, not because of guilt, but because the food itself had turned bitter in the dark. "Leave me," Kato muttered. "Your goddess has abandoned you. Find another fool to blame." But Mama Zuri stepped closer. The torchlight flickered, and for a brief moment, it seemed her shadow stretched unnaturally long, reaching all the way to him. "The moon is not gone," she whispered. "She is waiting, watching. But her light will not return until the curse you have spoken is answered." The villagers murmured in fear. Elder Nando raised his drum and struck it once. The sound that came out was hollow, empty like a breath with no soul. "What must we do?" he asked. Zuri's eyes turned skyward, where the heavens hung black as obsidian. Someone must go into the forest, to the pool of silence, and beg her forgiveness. But the one who caused her sorrow must walk the path alone. The crowd parted. All eyes were on Kato now. He wanted to protest, to tell them they were fools chasing shadows. But deep down, beneath the layers of anger and grief, something twisted inside him. Guilt, sharp and undeniable. So before dawn, what little dawn there was, Kato packed his knife, a small gourd of water, and Sira's bracelet, which he still wore tied around his wrist. Mama Zuri gave him a single warning. "The forest will not guide you, it will judge you. Speak not unless spoken to, and when you reach the pool of silence, do not look upon your reflection. The mother's eyes are everywhere." Kato nodded, though he barely believed her. Then he stepped into the forest, where night waited, thick and alive. The path to the pool of silence was older than the village itself, a narrow trail winding through giant trees and hanging vines that glowed faintly with blue spores. The air was damp, filled with the scent of rot and distant water. Each step Kato took sank into the soft earth with a sound like breathing. Hours passed, though it was impossible to tell how many. There was no sun to measure time. At one point, he saw movement between the trees, a flicker of white like Sira's dress. He froze. "Sira," he whispered. The figure turned. Her face was pale, smiling softly, but her eyes were hollow, black pits that leaked light like smoke. When she spoke, her voice was layered, both hers and something else beneath it. "You begged the sky for me. And now the sky has answered." He stumbled backward, tripping over a root, and when he looked up, she was gone. Only the silence remained, deep and cold as a grave. By the time Kato reached the pool of silence, his heart was pounding like the sacred drums on festival night. The pool lay in a clearing surrounded by pale stones carved with spirals and symbols older than memory. The water was black, perfectly still, reflecting no stars, no sky, no face. He stepped closer, his breath shallow. The air hummed with something vast and ancient, like the space between thunder and lightning. Kato knelt. He untied Sira's bracelet and held it above the surface. "Mother of eyes," he whispered, "if you can hear me, if you ever cared for us, forgive me. I spoke in anger. I was blind with grief. I am just a man who lost too much." For a long moment nothing moved. Then the surface of the pool began to tremble. A faint glow rose from beneath, soft, silvery, like moonlight under water. Kato gasped. "You heard me," he said. "You." The glow spread, circling him, wrapping his body in cold light. And then a voice, vast, feminine, echoing like waves through stone, filled the clearing. "You asked me why I watched her die. Do you think the eyes of the sky are blind to sorrow? Do you think your pain is greater than the world's?" Kato fell to his knees, trembling. I was angry. I thought you ignored us." "I see everything," the voice replied. "Every birth, every death, every tear. Yet I do not interfere, because life and death are the breath of the same being." The pool rippled and Kato saw her, a reflection of the moon itself, half veiled, her face beautiful and terrible. She reached out a hand of light. But you, Cato, you cursed the order of things. You spat upon the gift of balance. And now the world is unbound. The trees groaned. The stones cracked. The earth beneath him began to sink. Cato tried to speak, but the water surged upward, swallowing his words. You will bring back my light, the voice said. But every light demands its shadow. The pool exploded in a burst of pale fire. When the glow faded, Cato stood alone, except he was not alone. Behind him, shapes moved. Tall, thin figures with hollow faces, the same eyes he had seen in Syrah's ghost. They whispered, voices soft as wind through reeds. You took our light, bring it back. They followed him as he ran through the forest, silent but unrelenting. No matter how fast he moved, their shadows stayed with him, until he reached the edge of Ankara again. But the village was gone. Where homes once stood, there were only mounds of ash and bones. The sky was darker than ever, thick and low, pressing down like a living thing. And at the center of the ruins stood Mama Zuri, her staff glowing faintly. You spoke with her, she said quietly. Cato nodded, tears streaking his dirt-stained face. She told me to bring back her light. Zuri's expression darkened. Then you must give what you took. I took nothing, he shouted. But deep inside he knew the truth. He had taken faith. He had taken reverence. He had taken peace. Zuri pointed to the sky. The moon will not rise until her debt is paid. The mother of eyes demands a life that defied her. Cato's voice broke. You mean mine? The old woman nodded. The balance must return. The villagers, what little remained of them, gathered once more near the baobab where Syrah was buried. The air was thick with silence, the kind that trembles with unseen presence. No birds sang. No insects cried. Even the fire refused to crackle. Mama Zuri raised her staff, and the last torchlight flickered to blue. Cato of Ankara, she intoned, you spoke against the moon and brought darkness to the world. Will you now give yourself, so that light may return? Cato stared at the grave before him. Syrah's bracelet still hung from his wrist, a dull, dusty circle that once shone bright. He closed his eyes. If this is the only way, then let her see that I never stopped loving her. He knelt before the baobab. Zuri began to chant, words old as stone, vibrating in the bones of everyone who heard them. The sky stirred. A pale circle began to form above, faint and trembling. But as the light returned, the shadows around them began to move, long, twisted silhouettes rising from the ground, each shaped like a person but without faces. They circled Cato, whispering in a language that made the air taste like blood. The ground split beneath him. A column of silver light poured from the earth, wrapping him in its glow. Pain hit him like fire and frost at once. His skin burned, his breath froze. His eyes filled with light until he could see nothing else. Through the agony, he heard her voice again, soft, distant, sorrowful. You were right to question me, my son, but not to curse what you did not understand. Now you will see as I see, and watch as I must watch. Cato screamed. The light swallowed him whole. When it faded, he was gone. In his place, hanging in the black sky, shone the moon, full once more but dimmer, tinged with red. Mama Zuri bowed her head. He has become her eye, she whispered. He will look upon us forever, unable to rest, unable to forget. The villagers fell to their knees, weeping in awe and fear. The moon's light spread slowly across the land, awakening color, breath, and time once more. But its glow was not gentle. It felt watching, mournful, haunted. And sometimes, when the night is clear and the wind still, those who look up at the moon swear they can see the outline of a man's face, eyes wide with endless sorrow, watching over the world he tried to defy. When dawn finally came, it brought no sunlight. The sky was a dull gray, heavy with silence. Where the village once stood proud beneath the moon's gaze, now it lay broken. Huts collapsed, fields wilted, and the air hung thick with smoke and sorrow. A few villagers emerged from their hiding places, their faces pale with disbelief. They searched for Kofi, the man whose song had defied the night, but found only a trail of footprints leading toward the ancient baobab tree on the edge of the forest. The tree stood dark and twisted, its bark cracked like the skin of a dying giant. And there, kneeling before it, was Kofi. His hands were clutching something, a fragment of silver, glimmering faintly like a dying star. It was a piece of the moonstone mask he had worn during the festival, the same mask that had brought ruin upon them all. He was whispering, voice raw and broken. "I only wanted her to see me. I only wanted the moon to remember my name." The villagers dared not approach. The ground around him was scorched, as if lightning had kissed it again and again. But one child, a boy too young to know fear, stepped forward and touched Kofi's shoulder. The moment he did, Kofi's body turned to ash. A soft wind blew through the trees, scattering his remains across the earth, and for a fleeting moment the clouds parted. The moon, pale and cracked, appeared one last time above the horizon. And then it faded, leaving the world in a darkness that no fire could chase away. Aftermath. The song that should never be sung. Weeks passed. The villagers rebuilt what little they could, but the nights never felt the same again. The moon rose weaker, dimmer, as though it too mourned the arrogance of man. Old Nana Efua, the storyteller, gathered the children one night around the dying embers of a fire. Her eyes, clouded with age, still carried the reflection of that cursed night. "Children," she began, her voice trembling, "the moon once loved this village. She watched over us, bright and full, for generations. But we broke our promise. We mocked her, we tried to shine brighter than her light. And now she looks away." She looked toward the forest, where the baobab still stood, the place where Kofi's ashes had fallen. From its hollow trunk, some said they could still hear a faint humming, a song that rose only when the moon disappeared completely, a song that sounded like Kofi's voice. Years later, when strangers passed through the region, they would hear the same warning from every villager. "Do not sing beneath the dark moon. Do not boast before the spirits of the night. For they listen, and they remember." The elders explained that the moon's silence was not just anger, it was grief. Grief for the pride of mortals who believed they could touch the heavens without consequence. The tale of the night the moon refused to shine became a whispered lesson passed down for generations. It taught that beauty without humility brings ruin, that curiosity without reverence invites the wrath of what we do not understand, and that no light born of pride can ever outshine the eternal glow of the divine. Kofi's tragedy was not in his death. It was in his longing. He wanted to be seen, remembered, adored. Yet in trying to steal the moon's gaze, he lost the very thing that made him human: his humility. And so the story ends with this truth. When man tries to sing louder than the heavens, even the stars will close their ears. Many years later, a traveler wandering through the same land stopped at a hill overlooking the forest. There, under a rare full moon, he noticed something strange. The baobab tree glowed faintly, its bark lined with silver veins that shimmered in the darkness. And from somewhere deep within it came the sound of faint singing. Not joyous, not mournful, but eternal, a voice trapped between worlds, singing for forgiveness that would never come. The traveler fell to his knees, overwhelmed by sorrow and awe, and whispered, "May the moon forgive us, and may her light return someday." When he looked up again, the moon had vanished behind the clouds, as though hiding her face from the world. And in the silence that followed, the traveler swore he heard laughter, soft, broken, and distant. The laughter of a man who had once wanted to be loved by the moon. The night the moon refused to shine reminds us that pride is the darkest shadow beneath even the brightest light. That when man forgets his place in the rhythm of the world, the heavens will remind him, not with words but with silence, and that some songs should never be sung. If you felt the chill of this tale, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more haunting African folktales every week, where each story hides a curse, and every curse tells a truth.